been talking about, because, groups are so much more fun,
Yeah.
and to come down
This
here.
is a group restaurant.
This is.
It's where your friends can come, super easy, food just shows up, beverages show up, everybody's just carrying on, having fun.
Yeah.
And it's the way people really enjoy eating more often, since we're eating out more often because everybody's just so scheduled up. Instead of going to Hot Knot, which is a 2.5 hour, more formal experience and a little more precious and all that, certainly a place in the world for that. But this has been a massive hit for everybody because it's so fun.
It is fun. And we're just going to have started the podcast, so we're just going to keep going. So if you're joining us now, you're catching just a great conversation with Chris Hastings, chef extraordinaire. I got to talk about, I'm a Food Network fan. I got to talk about Iron Chef here in a little while.
Okay,
we're going to come back to that. When you're setting up a concept like this,
right,
there is unbelievable psychology that goes into this.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get that?
Okay, so I've had this restaurant in the back of my head for 15 years at least, probably 20 realistically. I was at a point in my life at 50 where I knew that I wanted to do another restaurant. I knew I had one more really signature design in me that really told the story of who I am as a human being and as a cook, as a person who has a relationship with the natural world, as an outdoorsman, and very much a ecologist and concerned with the wealth or the welfare of the earth and whatnot. And I was also at a point intellectually where I needed to do something daring and challenging, and
I get that.
Where I wanted to do the restaurant that was not a fried chicken place or a burger concept or name your favorite new kind of thing, right? And so I wanted to do something that all my chef friends said to me, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, which was build a restaurant without a gas line. So we build fires every day here, and we're not a barbecue restaurant. We're a restaurant that uses wood as a very interesting and very dynamic tool beyond just smoke and high heat, like grilling a steak or smoking pork butts, right?
Yeah.
So we custom designed a cooking battery, which we call the Hearth, that has every possible opportunity to take advantage of wood, whether it's the iron cross like the Argentines do with the whole animals, or spit roasting. And we built an oven that you have to actually build a fire on top of and underneath to create an oven.
Wow.
And so, and then a grill and a plancha and a more of a kind of a what people would recognize as a pizza oven, but we don't obviously do pizza here. We just roast things in that oven. And it requires all the cooks here to have a relationship with their fire, an intimate relationship. And so that I wanted our food to have an intimate relationship with fire. I wanted the cooks to have an intimate relationship with fire. I wanted our food also to reflect the diversity of ways to use wood in a different way that most Southern folks or just most people aren't used to. It's either the barbecue or it's the grill. And so I also wanted, as an outdoorsman, I wanted this place to look and feel, kind of as a backstory before I talk about the design. I used to sit here back in the late 80s when I was sous chef for Frank's. This garden was here then, and there was a garden shop that supported all the statuary and plants and stuff. But you could come sit in the garden, and it had, there's just places in the universe where there's a certain energy that's different and real, and you can, if you're aware enough in the world to recognize that energy, and when you find it, it's very special. So I used to come here because I really loved the place. It was quiet. It was kind of magical. Birds would be, in the trees, and it just had this. It was just beautiful and very, very peaceful. Great deal of solace I would find there, and I would write menus and notes about cooking and what I was doing and things I wanted to do, and it was just a special place. So when the landlord approached me and said, "Hey, I would like you, if ever you do a second restaurant, I would really like you to come to Pepper Place and do it." I said, "Okay, if we do that, I know exactly where I want it to be." And we started negotiating a deal, and here we are. And the design of the restaurant, from coming in the front door and having eaten here, those French doors are in the front, and on beautiful days, like last night when it was a little cooler, we would open all the French doors, and so the patio's full of people, the restaurant's full of people, so there's this exchange of energy.
Yeah.
The people inside, you're throwing their energy out into the garden, and the gardens bring in the outdoors, indoors, and it just feels amazing, and the energy's terrific, and that beautiful fountain, and all of the, the roses are blooming, and the statuaries are beautiful, and the energy from the people and the food and just the happiness.
And ultimately, you have the energy from the fires.
That's right.
Which to me is the symbology of that is fascinating to me.
Right.
Listening to you talk, the intuitive nature of which you have, you're super connected to what's going on around you. I mean, every element in here's not by happen chance.
No.
That intimate relationship you want with your chefs on that fire, how do you cultivate that?
Because
that's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not everybody who can get it.
Yeah.
Just have an understanding of how it physically works, but also how to emotionally channel that opportunity to really work with something that's always undulating. It's never constant. It's not like knob 400 degrees, it stays 400 degrees all the time.
Right.
It's always moving, and so you then have to know and understand and adjust that fire continuously to do what you need to do. And it requires certain people can and certain people can't, but I find that the Latino community particularly, they get it because largely they've come from kitchens and cultures where they grew up in a home where there wasn't a gas line. Their mother built a fire, either a grill or an oven. Yeah. And they cooked out of that all the time.
So they were nurturing that fire.
They saw it as a kid.
Yeah.
They appreciated it. They valued it. They got it. The other folks I find who do understand it and get it grew up around fire. It's not unfamiliar to them. Either they were outdoors people with their family where they camped and had some experience cooking over an open fire, or their mother or father was good at doing that in their home, either on a grill or an outdoor pit of some sort. And for those who don't get it, you just have to explain some physics to them. Like, okay, you got to light the fire, and the wood has to be a certain. We don't use any gas to light it, so we just use fat wood, and then you've got to stack it so the air can come into the initial lighting, and the wood has to be cured to a certain, not too green, not too dry. It's about 6 months in a boneyard, just getting to the right amount of moisture out, but not too much moisture out, so that it just goes up like a match.
Yeah.
Nor does it burn too slow like a barbecue firewood. That green wood that just smolders slowly all day. And then to understand what are you cooking, what is specifically are the dishes you're putting off that station, and how do you have to then control your heat to achieve the hope of that dish, right? And it takes a little bit of nurturing and mentoring.
Were you that way though, or was this something that, how you grew up in the South?
Yeah.
And you were a fire guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Have been since I was a kid.
Okay.
My family and I, since the time we were very, very young, we would do kind of, I guess, a pretty advanced camping. In other words, go into deep gorges. You have to hike everything in and everything out. You weren't going to a campsite on the side of the road.
Yeah.
You had to hike 4 or 5 miles in.
Right.
We were all young, and we cooked everything over a fire. My mom was a terrific cook. I loved to fish, so I would catch trout from the Linville River in the North Carolina mountains. We'd cook these great meals, and just that's just such a really an ancient kind of relationship. I think fire and food and kind of that DNA is in us from the beginning of the caves we crawled out of to so long ago into the civilized world. I find it so visceral and just natural.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't afraid of it at all when it came.
But it was, I'm sure other people, you're taking on an undertaking that requires such nurturing.
Well, in reverse
perform.
engineering all the work. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it. So that's why all my chef friends are like, have you lost your mind? You're not going to pull a gas line? How's that going to work? I'm like, I got it. I've done this all my life. But then there's the reality. You have to reverse engineer. Okay, how are we going to, do everything around building a fire?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not like turning on a stove or a convection oven or, a gas grill. It's just different. And but again, if you understand it, we wrote menus and we had a style of cooking in our mind that was going to be simpler. It was not going to be as complicated technique-wise. It was going to be all about the seasonal ingredients, a simpler preparation relative to what we do at Hot and Hot, which is much more high touch, much more, I would say, in the French vein of formal cuisine. And we wanted a food that kind of married the ideas of the American South with the live fire traditions of Argentina, Uruguay, Spain, Chile, Italy, and really kind of just do things simply and just. But it was so interesting last night. There was some folks in from Dubai, and they were I hadn't met them before. They apparently had eaten here before, and I watched them for a minute, and they just seemed very happy. So I said, you know what, I want to go meet these people. Well, this is the magic of food. This is the power of food. They had not been back to Dubai in years. They found this restaurant, and they fell in love with it because it reminded them of home. It reminded them, because apparently, having not been to Dubai, there are beautiful gardens and places that are very tranquil and serene. And again, they felt that energy that I spoke about earlier, and they were intuitive enough to pick up on it and embrace it. And then the food reminded them of home. And I'm like, okay, tell me about that. I had the same reaction. My head kind of went to the side, and I kind of said, okay, having never been to Dubai, if I'm going to guess, and I told him, I said, tell me if I'm wrong, but the only thing I can imagine is that what this food reminded you of home was because it was fresh and of this place and simple and clean and delicious and just was honest. I said, that's it. We have these same vegetables in Dubai. We recognize some of these flavor profiles with the spices and whatnot. They're not identical, but they reminded them of home, and they love it here because of that, because you just can't find that anywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's it. That's
what a great compliment, though.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets. I mean, I'd rather have that be said to me by a diner than the New York Times food section writing, that we're amazing.
Yeah.
To me, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Is that.
But what I love about here, as we said, I've been a couple times and more than a couple times, and it is an energy place.
Right.
I'm very big on energy.
Yep.
And it's something I've been that way since I was a kid. You can feel the energy of your room. It's why I hate to say I love Vegas. I'm not a big gambler. I love the energy because there's people committed to their craft.
Yep.
New Orleans reminds me a lot of that.
Huge energy.
People want you to see what they got. It's like,
right.
Come on, let me show you. That's hard, though, to transfer your energy to an organization. How do you do that?
Well,
because in the chef world, I'm going to make an assumption. Because when we watch the shows, look, bystander, right? The leadership style of a chef is very authoritative.
Right.
It's
dictatorships.
Yes.
This is not a democracy.
Okay.
So, however, that being said, gone are also the days where, you can be the loudmouth, yelling, screaming, cussing, throwing pots and pans, putting hands on people kind of kitchen. Right. Those days are long gone.
Yes.
With good reason.
Yes.
And far too late that it took that long. But the good news, it's gone. So, but as a dictator, I have to make sure that the vision for this restaurant is understood, first taught. In other words, we go through extensive training, both front and back of the house bar, and explain the philosophy and the vision. I tell everybody, I designed everything you're looking at, either working with a craftsman or picked it out myself, working with antique people that I know and people that will source things from all over, and wood makers, potters, metallurgists, craftsmen of all types. Found these lights in a gym in North Alabama out of and we reworked those, and they just fit. I just knew it. As soon as I saw them, I'm like, hey, man, I got to have them. But I've curated every corner of this thing. There's no sight line or nothing I haven't touched or felt and said this is it, and put it here. And I've explained that clearly to everyone. And then whether it's service points or whether it's our bar program or whether it's the food, we're very precise with all of it, and while being casual. A casual restaurant, casual food, it's hard to execute consistently, even any food, whether it's as casual as a hamburger or whatever we do here, or higher end food like we do at Hot and Hot. But so we are very strict about our recipes, our recipe standards. We write, myself and Sadesh Badaram, who's my chef de cuisine, we write the recipe, we concept the dishes, write the recipes, test the recipes, photograph the recipes, train the recipes ourselves with the cook who's responsible for that. They're given a book, a binder with all of those recipes on their station at all times. They can have them. We're not. It's not like it's proprietary knowledge. We want them to have that, and we want it to be consistent, and to achieve the hope of the vision of this restaurant, it has to be done right in any restaurant. But what we try to achieve here requires a certain. It just has to be done our way, and we do the same thing at Hot Dog. We're very process driven, just as a company, and training is very important. And not only training, but continued education is what we call our daily lineup. It's where we talk every day about the purveyor we're getting squash blossoms from, or the oysterman, or the shrimper, or the whatever.
Do you connect them with the stories of the purveyors?
These people.
And these are the people.
These people. Yep.
So to our listeners on the wall, they're the purveyors, the suppliers.
Yep, that's right. These people, these are farmers. Tommy's an oysterman. Henry Fudge is a great hog man, great farmer in South Georgia. And this is one of the, he's flounder gigging now, you can see, with his trident. But he's a flounder gigger in Apalachicola. And we get gigged flounder from him. And we've got everybody wants to fawn over the chef, and I think that's fine with me. However, the real heroes for the chef are not ourselves. It's these people who give their life to gigging a flounder and making their living on a body of water. That I have such reverence for that they work so hard, and they mullet fish when the mullet row is happening. They gig flounder when that's going on. They tong oysters. They do charter fishing. They make their living on the water.
Yes.
And all our purveyors are that way. They're disproportionately passionate. So, and they bring us the highest quality ingredients that we could ever hope for. So that I have the opportunity to think through and execute great food because I have the best possible ingredients.
Is there this is going to sound odd to say this, but is there like a romantic nature with the food for you? I mean, is it when you're creating something? Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously in the concept development, there's got to be failures and okay, but there comes a point where you got it.
Yes.
And it's like you've named it, and it's a family member, and it's like I got it.
Yes.
That's what
very
I mean by romantic.
Intimate.
Yeah, very
intimate. Very, you know when it's right, and at that moment it's like, okay, that's perfect. And what makes it so, I think, intimate and romantic is that when someone puts that in their mouth in your restaurant, and they go, what on earth? Where did this? Who thought of this? This is delicious. This is one of the best things I've ever put in my mouth, and that is the hope of great food. That our guests put something in their mouth, and oftentimes it may be a memory from their childhood.
Yeah.
We've all had that, honeysuckle moment. You take a honeysuckle as an adult and you taste it. You hadn't done it in 30 years, and all of a sudden you're transformed instantly like a time machine, and you're standing with your boys by the honeysuckle bush when you were 7 years old, eating honeysuckles out of, and it's food has got this crazy way of taking us to very lovely, warm memories that are intimate, back to intimacy.
It's funny you're just telling that story. So my dad was military, we moved around a lot, but we moved to Baton Rouge when I was in 8th grade, and here we are moving into a culinary suburb. Baton Rouge has its own, but New Orleans is. And we had a family friend of ours, and she was from Opelousas, Louisiana. And she could get rid of the Cajun accent very quickly and go normal. But then when she could get back around, it was back in hometown. And so when I went to college, she used to drop off. She didn't have any kids at the time, and she used to drop off barbecued shrimp in a big pot. And I was like, barbecued shrimp? Oh, you're going to put it on the grill? No. Mr. B's style, right? Just soaking with French bread. And so every finals, she'd drop it off. Well, in South Louisiana, you just go down to the local Walmart, and there's a shrimper sitting in the parking lot with a shrimp hanging off of a line who just caught him this morning, and he's trying to sell his catch, right? So, you don't think anything twice about that. And you go down, you pick them up, and she'd just make this vat of it, and I'd sit and eat, and my friends would come over, and that would be our finals. When my dad passed away, she came and spent 2 weeks with my mom. And we were sitting there, she goes, anything that you want, I'll make. And I'm like, well, Miss Tita, I said, barbecue shrimp. That night, we had a pot of barbecued shrimp set up, and we sat down as a family and during the morning period and breaking French bread and dipping it and talking and peeling. And, just to that point, it's just like it brings me to tears thinking about it.
Absolutely.
Because they're so incredible.
Yep.
They're so of my childhood, of remembering it.
Right.
I'm not saying my mom didn't cook great things.
But things are distinct.
Yeah, that was
one
distinct. Unbelievable. Still to this day, my kids will say, Miss Tita making barbecued shrimp.
That's
and
awesome.
I have the recipe, but I'm not going to make it.
Hey, look.
It's not her.
Yes. So that's back to the intimacy thing. She has a specific touch and a love and appreciation and understanding for how to cook.
Yeah.
Right? And for her, it's natural, but it's also very intimate.
Yeah.
I just know.
Oh, yeah. Her kitchen at her new house, they actually bought the Myrtles Plantation. Are you familiar with the Myrtles?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So they bought that about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So they've owned it since. But she, her house that she bought, she took a kitchen that she loved and just made it 50% bigger.
Right.
And it's big counters for, you go to her house for Thanksgiving.
Man,
and
I can only imagine.
It just lined up. And it's all her.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't bring anything.
No.
And,
she wouldn't have that.
She wouldn't have it.
That's awesome. Well, I think we all have those kind of memories, and one of the things that I believed with this restaurant was, okay, I've been cooking in this restaurant since 1986. Okay, so if I've done nothing else over that period of time, what's that, 30 years, give or take, I've developed trust. People say, okay, chef's going to open up a restaurant with no gas line. I might think that's a little bit crazy, but if he says he's going to do it, I trust that he's going to do it well. If chef says he's going to put on a beef fat candle,
yes, I was going to ask you,
or do something with octopus, or do any number of things. Have a goat, a braised goat dish. I mean, it goes on and on. I knew that I had developed enough trust where people say, hey, might sound a little bit funky, and nobody had done the small plate things yet here, right? And that was a little out of the box for Birmingham, which, I know that I found that a little bit hard to believe even, when we opened, is that some people just didn't get it. But by and large.
It was a meat and three place. I mean, the casual side is like meat and three. I mean, you had the fine dining, but it was share. What do you mean?
Yeah. And almost like a southern, you go to lunch places in the South back in the day where you'd sit in round tables and there'd be the Lazy Susan, everything was family style, and you'd sit with strangers.
Yep.
And kind of like a boarding house situation, kind of like that, you know what I mean? And so I knew that people would, as Southerners, fundamentally kind of get it, but there were people of a certain age, I think, and also kind of parochial food background who really kind of, didn't like their vegetables touching their meat, touching their starch kind of folks, and like, no, don't touch my food.
Yes.
I'm not into that, and which was fine, but that was not a deterrent. But back to the trust thing, everybody's like, yep, we're going to trust it. If chef says you're going to do a beef fat cannel or goat or whatever, we're in. And it's been a great success, and people love this restaurant.
How do you control ideas? Because being creative, intuitive, and connected, I got to believe that there's sometimes periods of time where ideas are just flowing. And how do you filter and select?
Well, I've learned over the years. I had to also learn process. In the beginning with Hot and Hot, we flew a little bit by the seat of our pants. We let ideas just kind of roll all the time. We didn't get some beautiful oysters in, or some some guys brought some beautiful rabbits in. Let's we weren't expecting to get rabbits. Let's do something with rabbit, and we'd put our heads together and we'd think about a dish and we'd come up with a great dish, and it was just a little too fly by the seat of your pants.
I get that. I do that, unfortunately. Makes my team probably crazy.
Well, what I realized was I can't do this. We did that for probably the first 2 or 3 years. I'm like, this is a little inconsistent because the recipes were never written down. A cook calls out, another cook comes in. Okay, we've got to doing this dish. I'm flying around the kitchen. The new cook decides, the tomato salad that we're doing today, I think the vinaigrette, balsamic vinaigrette, needs some sugar in it. And boom, they go throw in some sugar. Didn't say anything to me. I'm like, and then I realized that was happening a little bit too much, where we were allowing our brand to be hijacked by just the whim of a chef thinking it needed that or this or that. And I said, no, time out. That's just not going to work. So we put the brakes on, went to the process of development, and so of recipe development, one dish at a time, very methodical, very precise. And so we learned to be creative in a more controlled way, a more consistent kind of rhythmic way instead of a manic.
Did you worry about losing anything in that? Because I gotta imagine there was some genius in that creativity.
There really was. I think that's an excellent question. Actually, I think some of the best things we ever did came of that time, and a lot of those things are documented in our cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
And once you kind of put the governor on that, that energy, that creative kind of go, I think there is a chance sometimes that you don't take enough risk, and that was part of the reason I needed this restaurant.
Yeah,
I needed this restaurant because intellectually I needed to kick the governor off the process and really kind of think out of the box and rejuvenate.
It's almost a playground, an idea playground. You're allowed to create things and give it a shot.
And do something different than Hot and Hot. I also felt like this city needed this restaurant. It had not seen food like this yet. It had not really embraced a live fire restaurant other than a barbecue joint, right? That's just really all there is.
Mm-hmm.
There's barbecue, and then there's this live fire restaurant, and so the small plate thing was new, and then the ideas that I had about marrying those different cultures of Spain, like I said before, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, on and on, to me seemed so natural, and so because you get too cute by half real quick by colliding cultures in a way that's either, again, too cute by half or disrespectful or don't have an understanding of those cultures enough to where how to restrain your creativity. You gotta when you're putting together flavors and ideas, just putting on another ingredient doesn't make it genius.
We always laugh about Cajun food. Go to a restaurant and you go to outside of Louisiana. It's like, well, Cajun food means hot, spicy, and burnt, and topped with a hollandaise. It's like, no, you've missed the entire
people, it's like the South. Everybody thinks that about the South. It's a one-dimensional kind of, fried chicken and, barbecue and fatty food and, all that kind of stuff. The South is the most interesting tapestry of food cultures that we have in this country, period, hard stop. It is not arguable. Yeah. With all of the influences from all of different cultures from around the world who've settled in the South and have allowed their foodways to be preserved, is the true story of the American South and its food scene that is anything but one-dimensional. It is the most interesting and diverse food scene easily in America.
I can't imagine. You go on vacation, you've got to be evaluating culinary experiences, probably a little bit.
Nah,
you're off.
I'm off.
Okay.
I cook.
When you go
When
to a
on
beach
vacation,
house.
I'll cook. I'll go if we go down to the coast. We'll generally fish and crab and shrimp.
Okay.
We'll catch it and we'll cook it, or if we're not in a place where we're more in a somewhere like a seaside or a watercolor or whatever, I'll go down the street to the fishmonger there and get live crabs, and I find out the days they're catching them and delivering them, and get the local fishes. And I still just enjoy the being in the kitchen and cooking for my family, and I do that on my days off. And yeah, I'll go out to the restaurants, but I'm not there at all to get the scorecard out.
Well, I'm glad you said it, because as a psychologist, people always think that's what we're doing when we go out.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm off.
I'm off, man.
Trust me, man. I'm not analyzing anybody.
Right.
Not even paying attention.
Unless you just show your ass.
Well, you show your ass, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but I'm going to
this
watch.
This is a narcissist over here. Holy crap.
Yeah, okay, that's fun. Feel bad for the person. What do you let's talk about Iron Chef for a minute.
Right.
And I was flipping channels one night, and I saw you were on there, and I'm like, oh, sweet. Because you went against Bobby Flay.
Yeah, stomped his ass into a mud hole.
Yeah, you did. Why'd you pick him?
Okay, it's a great question. So to understand how the process works with Iron Chef is the Food Network's very clear on this. They're like, okay, we know you can cook, but we don't know if you can understand what you're doing here. We're making television, dude. We need you to be good on TV.
So you need to be a personality.
That's right. And you gotta hit your marks. You have exactly 60 minutes, and you got to get to the finish line, and you got to do it efficiently, and you have to have your act together. And we're going to give you a few opportunities to understand it and practice it prior to showing up and filming this thing, so you don't walk into this cold. And so they said, here's the layout of the kitchen. You need to practice a lot. Call your chef friends. Get their take on what they did right and what they did wrong and what they would do differently. We would advise you to be yourself. Don't try to overthink this. We know you can cook. Be yourself. I had that reiterated to me by all my chef friends who'd done the TV show. They said, the biggest mistake we made is got a little too cute. We thought we were there, that we had to be different than we were every day, and we did things we were not doing in our restaurant, and that was a mistake. And so they also know that, when I show up that morning and go, I'll take Iron Chef Bobby Flay. Well, there's not 5 other guys standing around waiting for me to pick. So they said, who do you want to face in the interview process?
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I said, well, look, here's the deal. I'm not coming to New York from Birmingham, Alabama, to face anybody but whoever is at the top of the food chain. I don't know who's the most winning. I don't know who's the most losing, but just whoever it is that is the most winning chef that you have at the top of the averages, that's who I want to face. Don't know who it is, but that's who I'd like to face. They kind of, okay, getting over your skis there, aren't you, buddy? Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, I like to compete. I want to get this right, and if I'm gonna come, I want to face the best. Period. And they love that attitude. But my takeaway was, they want good television. They just that's what they're doing. They don't care if I win or lose.
Yeah, they just want.
They have to get their brand kept intact. They can't have some idiot show up and flail about and not make their dishes on time and all that. A lot of my chef friends said, there's, you have to submit 3 different menus. Okay. They give you in advance three ingredients because they want good TV. Yeah. You got to practice. So mine were either octopus, Parmesan cheese, or sausage. So we wrote 3 menus. And one of my chef buddies said, okay, if you need to tell, write your menus different enough to where if you called your favorite supplier for your whatever, this menu had that dish on it. Did you ship kohlrabi and white peaches to the Food Network this week? And they go, well, how'd you know that? And so there's your tell. Yeah. And so that it's not the other 2. So that gets off, and so you get then about 3 or 4 days to practice what you think is the tell and the dish you're going to get. So we went through that process.
And I'm sure he's got a head up too.
Oh, I don't know this to be true, but I guarantee you he knows in advance the dishes he's doing.
I can guarantee you.
Yeah, right. So, and so, we practiced. We were the only people that ever brought our own set of pottery for all 3 dishes that we designed for each one of those menus, right? And we served our food on pottery made here in Alabama by Earthborn at Earthborn Studios pottery, and we brought our own Elmore County moonshine, and we just really represented ourselves in a way that was authentic. I mean, one of the
it was best. It was also not what most of the country would want to think about Alabama.
Exactly.
It was.
Yeah.
We're damn good at this.
Well, I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. As soon as what I try to do here at this restaurant in Hot and Hot is that people come from all over the world here to eat because of UAB largely and other things. But I want people to inform their feet where they are standing this day through their mouth. So there's no confusion about where you are. You are in Birmingham, Alabama. It's the 22nd of June. The corn is just picked. The peas are ridiculous. The okra's coming out of Chilton County along with the peaches, and that shrimp's coming up from Dominic Ficarino and Biola Battery, and we're telling the stories of these people, and it's a wow moment. So we did that at the Iron Chef competition in a way that the judges were like, okay, great technique, ridiculous flavors, and you are telling me everything I need to know about Birmingham, Alabama, and Alabama generally through these flavors. So that is where we won. We won on authenticity, telling the story of our place, and, of course, good technique and flavor, which we know how to do.
Yeah.
And it was very gratifying because, to your question, when people saw that food who were not from Alabama were impressed by it, thought, okay, didn't know that kind of level of cuisine was going on, except most people know about Frank. And the people who were from the South wrote me letters, stopped me in airports, stopped me on the street, stopped me at baseball games, stopped me at church, stopped me wherever I am, and thanked me for representing the South in a way that they're proud of, and they're, they appreciated it.
That's rewarding.
People cried. People hugged me and they cried because they felt vindicated for being looked down upon for most of their lives.
Okay, so I'll go there. So you and I both did training in Providence.
Yes.
Very proud of their culture.
Absolutely.
And say this with all the due respect, they don't believe the United States goes much west of Connecticut.
Nope.
And it's
very place-centric.
Yes. Brilliant food, brilliant culinary,
great
Johnson and
food
Wales,
scenes.
what you're talking about. But there is this belief that outside of that area, because when I went there the first day, my advisor who brought me up was like, oh, you wore shoes. I mean, he was joking.
Typical.
Yeah, he was joking.
Right.
But I always laugh and say I went to Brown because they needed a guy from South Louisiana to fulfill a task.
That's right.
But it's such a do you see this revolutionary shift? Because it's not so much San Francisco anymore. I mean, now with Frank Stitt winning James Beard, you've top chef in the country. You as well, one of the top chefs. I mean, something's happening here.
Yeah, it's real.
Something's happening.
Oh, it's real. It's all over the South. It's no
Atlanta,
longer
Nashville.
No longer is the South kind of this,
Greenville, South Carolina.
Ridiculous food in Greenville.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Same with Chattanooga. Charleston, Savannah's on fire. They're
Oxford,
finally
Mississippi.
Oxford, Mississippi. I mean, you go on and on and on. Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, and what I would say is that it's always been there. There's always, for many, many years, as long as I've been in the South, there's been this great food culture that nobody really understood. It took the chef community to kind of help bring to bear and put it out there in front of people and say, this is my contemporary version of the South I grew up with. And it's very reverent to foodways from every chef's history that cooks around the South. But it's also very contemporary in many ways. It's very thoughtful, and so that people are kind of going, wow, okay, the South is really kind of not, it's not as backwards and illiterate as we think when it comes to foodways and the contemporary American food scene. Robert Mondavi gave us an award back in, I guess it was 91. 98. We opened Hot Hunt 95 for Robert Mondavi had the Culinary Award of Excellence. And if you look at the Robert Mondavi Culinary Award of Excellence from the chefs that was given to, they recognized it's an amazing group of chefs, number one. I mean, it's a who's who, and they don't do it anymore. Yeah. They awarded chefs who had a passion for the food of their place. Mondavi's, of course, being Italian, knew and understood that wine and food of place was where life is lived at its richest and its most rewarding. And to break bread with your family and your friends with the food of that place and the wine of that place and to share that idea. And they wanted to award chefs who really exemplified that idea. And so they created that award. And so, Mondavi's got it back in the day, a long time ago. But there's myself, Frank, a number of folks here in Birmingham have been James Beard Award winners for their writing, for their restaurants. Don Lester on Frank's team won it for Best Pastry Chef. Yep. The Bright Star in Bessemer got a James Beard Award. One of my sous chefs, Robbie Melvin, wrote an article for Southern Living about pork fat, and that got a Beard Award. And so, there's smart people, thinking people here.
Okay, so to that point, and I want to respect your time because you got things to do. Do those awards feed you, or is it the relationship with the? I mean, it helps. I mean, those are nice. Those are unbelievably honoring. But you're not doing it for this. You're doing it for the footprint.
There's no question that I was born to be a cook. I mean, there's
no doubt the way you talk about it.
I'm a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
I might be a Forester, but I'm definitely first and always will be at heart a cook. My tombstones read cook. And that is to get up every day and to handle and touch and go to the farmer's market and see all my purveyor friends and see the guys who come in the back door of the restaurant with these beautiful things and get with my team and work through an idea and a dish and get it right and then put it out and then see people sitting out on the patio from Dubai, of all places, in this serene moment that reminded me of their home is it. That's why I do it, period. Hard stop. Yes, the awards. I went after the James Beard Award from the time I opened my restaurant. I said, that's a personal goal.
You wanted that.
I wanted that. I stated out loud as a
thank you.
I wanted that.
Real quick, let me stop there for a second. You've done two things here in this that I'm fascinated about. I want all of our listeners to understand because it's something that I've tried to do in my life. First thing is you went against the grain and you had an idea and a vision and it was planned. It wasn't an overnight vision. It was something that started 30 years ago sitting in here.
That's right.
Writing your menus, writing your plans. You had a vision. You were willing to go against the grain. I did the same thing with what I was doing as a psychologist. I was like, you got to go this route. I'm like, no, I don't. I know what I'm doing. I found an office building that was a door and window showroom and I built the office. It doesn't look anything like a psychologist office. I love it. The next one we have will do the same thing. But then what I love more than anything else is what I call a manifesto. I'm going after that.
Right.
I'm doing it.
Yep.
I put everybody on notice, and they're going to be sacrifices along the way.
And you don't need anybody's permission.
No. That's what I love.
I mean, that's how you get things done in life. I don't know how. I think consensus can be problematic.
Yeah.
I think people who, like yourself, like me, I'm just not going to be put in a box and do things that are conventional. I want to have original ideas. I want to work towards something I know in my heart I believe in and can execute, and I want to do it. And my wife has been amazing. She's always believed that if I wanted to do it, she was right there with me, and she called me out and say, well, maybe that's right or wrong
Your
or
wife
whatever.
Sounds like my wife, yeah.
Which I needed.
I do too.
And so, but at the same time, that wasn't to say no, we're not doing the vision. We're just going to.
We just got to have a better process to get there.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
And so it's been a great gift for me to be in a community, that allows me and trusts me to think freely and create freely. It's been a great gift to have a second restaurant that I've dreamt about that has turned out to be exactly what I wanted. That I couldn't be happier with, just in terms of what it does for your soul when you're here, when you eat it and you put it in your mouth. That was the whole goal. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to do a fried chicken restaurant or something like that. This was the restaurant I'd had in my brain for a long time, and everybody told me I was crazy, and I didn't care. And it's to me, I'm so happy about it. I can't even begin to tell you.
Now everyone calls it brilliant.
Yeah, now I'm a genius.
Yeah, now you're
instead of an idiot.
Yeah. Last question I have for you, and this has been phenomenal. I want to thank you for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
Me too.
How are you going to walk away from this?
That's a great question.
What's your sunset?
Sunset would be ideally. If I'm 56 years old, I would say probably in 10 years, I will have, in the next 3 to 4 years, identified someone who I'm going to sell this restaurant to and hot not to. Whether it's, my son's thinking about maybe wanting to get back into the industry. He's got that thing, and he's like most boys, they run away from their father's career until they realize that they themselves have that gift, and they've tasted the other side of the fence, and it's not delicious. And so that might happen. I've got a number of employees now that I think would carry the flag well, and nothing would make me happier to see these two brands survive with its next iteration with people that had been inside my organization for years, who have that same passion and love for not only these brands but the business themselves. And then they're welcome to let it evolve under their administration and their ownership and their creativity and their their ideas. That to me would be great. Not working is going to be something hard for me. I mean, I've got a consulting business that I'll probably still, keep doing as long as I can, because I don't think I can fish, hunt, and hang out. It's just there's too many days in the year for that, and so I always want to keep intellectually stimulated, and you don't want to outlive your money, so you want to keep the flow going, and that's where I am right now. And my wife and I talk about it a lot. Actually, we're very much in the how we gonna unwind it. What's the sunset? We're talking to some of our people. So it's exciting.
This is a dream of mine on the podcast is to have somebody like you, and I'm glad I identified. We talked and we were like, see if Chris will do this, and the reason is because what you do is living psychology. What you do is living performance. You have standards that are excellent, and
try to.
This is fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be on my side.
Yeah.
Thank you for including me. I kind of wondered, like, why would he want to talk to me?
Yeah, this is exactly why I want to talk to you. Exactly why I want to talk to you.
It's been an honor to be on your show, Brett. Really.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's awesome.